What are you doing, man?
Oh, hey, Mel. Have you not seen? This is a new trend. Everyone's doing it. Voice got MVP. Even the casters are doing it.
Wait, really? Everyone was doing it?
Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 18 of the Matchfix. I'm Shuck, the opposer of order and pusher of peas, and I'm joined by the attractively debatable, but still dateable, Amelg.
Please DM me. I'm so lonely, please.
So getting into the games this week, I think you'd have to say that on day one, Order vs. Dire was definitely the highlight, at least for me. I think from the very start, the draft is actually massively Order favored. Like from the Dire side, there's a lot of things that I'm going like, what is going on? I'm seeing a Silas blind pick and I'm seeing a Mumu paired with Caitlyn. That being said, well, I think on paper, the draft is very favored for Order. I actually think that for what the team's identity is, it might even be better for Direwolves because Direwolves have got the skirmishing mid that they're after, even if Silas blind pick is very troll. And they've got Mighty Bulldog on a champ that like he can engage with and he can do stuff with. And I think on the other side of things, I really don't like Kisei on these like scaling mid picks that much. I don't think it's like really his greatest strength as a player. Like he's decent at them, don't get me wrong, but I think we'll see in this game that it didn't really do that much, honestly, for a long time. And I think it hurt them a lot. So yeah, like I think if it were 10 robots playing this game, like I just give it to Order every time. But I think coming out of it, like Direwolves honestly got a bit more of what they wanted.
I think it definitely does come back to what we talked about last week with Direwolves as a team kind of wanting to get stuck in with the boys, right? That's what they're good at and that's what they've got their wins off of. And yeah, I definitely do agree that the comp does just that. I do feel like the Caitlyn pick felt a little bit out of place. Like it's not a bad pick, but although it does kind of make sense, right? Because you've got Caitlyn moving like quite a strong lane against the Zeri Yuumi. Speaking of Zeri, Hooper in for Puma this week.
Like Hooper seems like he's a pretty good player, and Solo Q did manage to take out my Ezreal, which is no mean feat, believe me. I think I went like 0-7 or something.
Oh my, you
get that on the big jobs. But yeah, I like Hooper. Cool guy.
Getting into the game, Caitlyn and Mumu already paying dividends like really early on, finding a cheeky first blood onto Corporal's Yuumi. Somehow, even on Yuumi, he still finds a way to get caught. We gotta respect that. And that kind of bled into Direwolves getting the first dragon really early on in the game. They played it really well because after this first dragon, they lane swapped their bot lane top, and this was like right before the Rift Herald spawned. And so Bulldog did a really good job in like securing human mid prio, and everyone was sort of getting assembled. Got the Rift Herald as well, like already a great start to the early game, getting first dragon, first Rift Herald, and then later on they swapped back to bot before the dragon spawns, and it's just like it was like honestly it felt like really flawless macro play from Direwolves in the early game. They're just like consistently like ahead in tempo and actually building advantages off of that, which is something where I feel like a lot of teams fail at. Like it's sort of like a two-step process, and like teams either fail at step 1 or step 2 or both of your gravitas. And this sort of forced Order into a weird position where they felt pressured to give up that dragon and like try and 3-man dive top, but it was like one of those players is a Yuumi, and the Yuumi has no ult, so it's really just like a 2v1 under a tower against the Gwen, and that's not really doable. But Godo stays there for like a full minute, just like waiting, where I feel like he should have instead played to like enable Kisei and get that 4-man dive, which is like actually doable in this universe. So overall, a really good early game from Direwolves, right? Like pretty much perfect, but the start of their downfall is at 15 minutes. And this is when Order bring up Bio to secure the second Rift Herald, which is like, second Rift Herald, no one really cares. But then they drop it top, kind of like before the third dragon is spawning. And Hooper's there as well. They kind of just, like from the way Order positioned on the map, you can kind of tell that they're not really interested in contesting this third dragon and they're sort of fully committing into that topside thing. But Direwolves take like a really weird sort of like ego fight. It's like a 2v3 with Zonas and Human, and they sort of like go out from under the tower to take that fight. So it's like it wasn't really necessary at all. And then that 2v3 turns into like a 2v5 very quickly because Kisei and Bio quickly TP back up and, take him to the ranch. And that tower goes down. So Direwolves do get the dragon, but they give away 2 towers and 2 kills pretty much for free. And this is when Order build up a slight gold lead. And it's not really good when Direwolves just spent that whole early game building up advantages.
Yeah, so I think Direwolves, they were mostly controlling their early game, like you said, maybe threw a little bit back. But at 18 minutes, they find this really good engage. I think Kisei, a lot of fights this game did like positioned pretty poorly, honestly. And he gets like queued by a Mumu, and then Bulldog like flash ults the entire team, and they get a really good fight. And this was like, yeah, they've given a little back, but as long as they can keep this Caitlyn ahead and make her not fall behind, that's very, very important. The champ's completely useless if you fall behind.
Yeah.
As long as they can stay ahead, then they're in a pretty good spot. It is sad to me, though, very sad, depressing, heartbreaking even, that the Caitlyn did invest all her gold into buying a collector against 2 tanks, which was very frustrating to me. I think we're at the point now where people should be able to itemize. And if you can't, yeah, it's just... I'm getting sick of it, Okay, but anyway, like Direwolves, they're still in the lead until there's a little bit of a for fun play, a little bit of a disaster, I might even say, at 21 minutes.
Oh no!
Can you walk me through this one, Amelg?
Yeah, so it's like around just over like a minute to dragon spawning. The Soul Point dragon. Direwolves have 3 dragons to order 0, and they're like kind of like feeling out like a potential dive topside on the outer turret. But they send like 3 of them into like that sort of top tri-bush, and then they spot out Gudo and Corporal Meow Meow on the Yuumi. And for some reason, they just like stick around, get like 3-man Yuumi altered, and they just get completely rinsed. I don't know what the fuck was going on when I was watching that. That was just so weird to me. It's like they're being mind controlled. Yeah,
it looked super weird. I'm not even sure like what the plan was there. That felt like, you're saying in the early game how Direwolves like had pretty good, or you said, I think even flawless macro, right, for the early game. But this macro was not it.
That's not even macro.
That like, I don't know. It's like when you do this, I think you push mid-wave, and then, with your priority, you go in, you get all the vision, then you push mid-wave again, and then you make a play. But instead what they did is they just like pushed the mid-wave up. They didn't really ward the jungle at all, and they just tried to make a play straight away. And surprise, surprise, they're all there because you haven't forced them out of the jungle, right?
Yeah.
So that was like super strange because it was like, in my opinion, you've done all the hard parts, and then it's like just the last finishing touch you managed to mess up in such a huge way. And then they all get killed, and they lose Baron, and they get outscaled. So I was like, okay, at this point, like they are in big, big trouble. Yeah. But then they kind of got a little bit of a little lifeline thrown their way at 22 minutes. Kize, once again, doing a little bit of inting. He's playing Azir, right? Long range champion, as you know. And he just walks onto a Caitlyn trap. It's like, it's not even like it was placed while he was walking. It's just like already there. The man's just got, I don't know, male blindness syndrome where, how like you just can't find things in the fridge or whatever?
What?
I've
never heard of that.
No, you don't know. But anyway, I have that problem a lot. So he just like selectively ignores this trap on the ground and walks in. It loses all his HP. And this fight, it's like, if Direwolves can manage to get the soul here, like they can win. But then it's like, but they shouldn't be able to win this fight, I don't think. But after Kize loses all his HP, it looks like, okay, Direwolves, they've thrown Kize's counter thrown. We're back in a good spot. But then Gudo manages to get this drag. And I think, again, the game should kind of be over here. But it's not.
There's like a big lull period until the next dragon spawns. I'm really surprised nothing happened, but like 27 minutes, Direwolves essentially have setup on the dragon, and they're sort of like doing a little tug of war with order. And the fight is going pretty well for Direwolves. Like they kill Bio, they kill Gudo, they kill Kize, and it's just Hooper and Corporal left versus 5 of Direwolves. And I don't know what the fuck. It's just Zeri things, man. Like Zeri Yuumi, they're just like zooming around, and Direwolves are dropped very low, but for some reason they forget that they have Hex Gates that they can get out of the base with, and teleports that they can use to get out of the base with, and they just like stick around on 1 HP, like trying to figure out. It's like, oh, can I get this Yuumi? No, oh, maybe now I can reach it. No, oh, yeah, it's like, I don't know. They're just like having this little dance with Zeri for so long while Zeri still has her ult stack.
Yeah, they don't let it run out.
It's not gonna work. Just like go back to your base. You've got like 40-second death timers on order. Go back to base, heal, come back, take the dragon, and maybe have a chance at winning the game.
Yeah. Instead, they first off, it was like really well played by Hooper and Corporal, admittedly. They like played on their range like super, super well, and they managed to keep them there for long enough that even though they got the drag, like Order was able to come back on the map and just get the Baron. And to be honest, I think that's like really insane. Like this is literally, it was his debut game, right?
Yes,
like he hasn't played before this. And like here he is just 2v5ing the enemy team. And like if he makes a mistake, he pretty much instantly dies. So that was really impressive. Not so much, well, like the skill is impressive, of course, but just like the confidence straight away was really impressive to me. And I think, honestly, even at this point, after Direwolves get the soul, I just feel like they're kind of Omega outscaled. Like they've got the soul, but the other team is just so strong by this point. It's what, like Yumi, Zeri, Azir as like your carries, and this Azir's like got a Rabadons now. Despite I think Kize was like trolling most of the game, like it's impossible not to do damage now, right? So they just get the Baron and they have a couple more fights and they just kind of get stomped. Like there's not much else to it. Teams are definitely figuring Sumin out a little bit because like, well, Sumin kind of figured himself out a bit this game just by blind picking Silas, right? But I think like this was really a game where Sumin did look pretty useless, honestly, and normally like he's a really big carry for them, right? So if Sumin had, been that big carry like he normally is, Direwolves probably win this game. So yeah, I think that's like really one of the big keys to taking Direwolves out. And yeah, after the game, just gotta mention, I don't think Kize should have got MVP for this game. Look, I'm a Kize fan like everyone else, but there's going to be some changes around here when it comes to the MVPs because I'm not even sure we're watching the same game.
Yeah, I mean, Hooper really pulled off. And like we said, Dubé debut game against one of the better teams in the league. And it's just so stable. And I think it's especially exciting that we have sort of this, I guess, fight between like the two young talents, or like two of the youngest talents in the LCO in Hooper and in Dante. And it's just like, both of them played really well. I think Hooper definitely did deserve the MVP. But overall, Order better than Direwolves on the day.
And did I predict Order? I did, right? And you predicted Direwolves? Is that what happened?
Day 2, Gravitas versus Mammoth. Battle of the garbage dump, honestly. And just like Gravitas through the early games, I'm going to throw this one to you.
Okay. Yeah, I want to talk about this game a little bit. I get that it's kind of like a bottom of the standings match, but we don't really highlight Gravitas much around here other than negative sentiment. Yeah. So yeah, I'd kind of like to take a quick look at it. I think that honestly, Gravitas throughout the split and this game included, have actually had pretty solid early games. They sometimes get some solo kills. They sometimes like come out of the early game with a gold lead against some of these better teams. Sometimes it's better than never, right? So I think Gravitas do sometimes put themselves like in a position to win, but then they do just like, well, first off, I think they make stuff pretty difficult for themselves with their draft. Like I think like looking at this Mammoth versus Gravitas draft, again, I think like if you're on the like bottom end of teams, just like making your comps super simple, super scaling heavy is really, really good. And if you look at this game, it's like Mammoth have going for them like a Corky Kale late game. It's like very scary. Yeah. And just like if the enemy makes a few mistakes, they're going to get there no matter what. Like I think the Kale was like 0-5 or 0-4 at some point. I think, yeah, maybe really? 0-4. Wow. She's like really far behind, right? But she still ends up scaling well. And I think on the other side, like champions like Silas and Ezreal, I don't think you should play that. Well, I'm not even sure high tier teams should play this, but I definitely don't think bottom tier teams should play this because it's just like making stuff really hard for yourselves. But you know what? Gameplay is king. And one thing that I saw this game that I just not really sure what to say about it. So at like 18 minutes, Dajung is like pushed up a bit bot, and the enemy team Mammoth is going to gank him, right? And now if you look at the map in this state, it's like if Mammoth commit 5 people killing Dajung, that's a kill, that's whatever. In the meantime, Gravitas can take like mid tower, they can take raptors, they can push in waves. There's like way more gold. In fact, Mammoth killing Dajung is probably a bad play. Yeah. But instead, it's like Gravitas are like, okay, we're just gonna like fully commit to backing this guy up. They're like double TP in, everyone goes down, and because they're playing a comp that like needs to win early, if they lose this fight, which they do, they just like instantly lose the game. And it's like, I wonder what the takeaway that they took away from this is, because I think there's 2 things. The first is like, obviously, from a gameplay point of view, it's like if you're in this situation, you just, okay, you let Dajung die, you just push your waves and whatever. But I actually think something that's maybe a bit more important is I think Gravitas just needs someone there to like step back from actually playing their own champion for a bit and just like look at the map. Because I think even if they had known what the right thing to do was, I'm not sure anyone would have made the call. And I think this is something that happens even on higher teams as well. It's honestly very difficult to play your champion to like a high level and like be thinking about what you're doing in the game, while at the same time be thinking about like what the team should be doing, right? But I think at some point, someone needs to like take the hit, just like individually perform a little bit worse, like to be able to like tell people what to do. It doesn't even have to be just like a full dictatorship shot calling role, but it's just there needs to be some direction. Because I think if you're the Gravitas coaching staff and you watch this and you tell them like, okay, like this was the bad play, I'm not sure they'll be able to fix it, because I just don't think they have someone on their lineup that's going to do that. And do we even know if the Gravitas coaching staff gave them the right feedback anyway? Like maybe the feedback was that they just played the fight badly. I mean, which fights can always be played better, right? But I'm just, for a team that loses so much like this, I really think they need some like big systematic changes. And I don't know, they put themselves in good spots. And I said at the start of the split, I don't think Gravitas will win a game, but I think they should. They should be able to win a game.
I'm going to relate this to Valorant because
okay.
You don't know Valorant, so I feel like I
take it away.
I have an edge. So when I'm playing with my mates, they always do this thing that we call overheating. And it's like when you're like popping off a little bit, your brain turns to mush and you just keep going, right? And it kind of feels like what's happening to Gravitas. Like they're focused so much on like playing their own character that they don't actually see the bigger picture of like what's going on in the game. And that just seems to happen over and over again, where like even if they do get these early game leads, they just pretty much like blow their own brains out in the mid to late game. And it's just like so tragic to see every time. And yeah, definitely like they need some sort of big change. Like you said, like a mindset change. Just like, I don't need to do the best on my champion. I just need to make sure the team is on the right page, because they're in like a different book. Like it's like nowhere near where it should be.
Yeah, I think lost in the sauce, as a wise man once said. My personal favorite game of this week, Day 2, Peace versus PGG, the return of Violet, the big ADC matchup from Split 1, Violet versus Praetor. This is an epic showdown of massive proportions. I think it should be massive showdown of epic proportions. But anyway, Bob's your dad's brother, as I like to say. I think going into the draft, I really like Peace's draft. I think this is like draft Exodia. It's just like OCE draft Exodia, rather. It's like they've got like scaling, team fight. It's really simple to play. And I think they've also like countered the enemy team. So I'm really, really happy with Peace's draft. On the other hand, I'm not super happy with PGG's draft. I like Yuumi and Gwen. I think that's a really OP combination, but they fifth picked Azir. And I think people don't understand what Azir does anymore. Azir used to be this like DPS champion that you picked into tanks to kind of like, DPS them down. And this was from a very different area of League where it was like two front lines colliding and then the back line would just get to hit for free. Yeah. League team fights, they don't really work like this anymore. And on top of that, Azir is just not really a DPS champ anymore. Azir is more of a poke champ. So he's much better against like squishies in my opinion. And so you're picking Azir into like a poke champ, into a team that has tanks and has a lot of sustain. We've got like Bork healing on the Belveth. We've got sustain from Ahri's passive. We've got Senna healing and Yasuo builds lifesteal. So like looking at this, your fifth pick, once again, the crown jewel of your draft, it's useless. I really don't think it does anything here. So not really a fan. I think the reason they did it, I guess, is because, well, they could be stuck in the old Azir mindset, or it could be that because Azir is a good matchup into Ahri. But I don't know. There are lots of like matchups that Ahri's kind of like a free scaling lane for whatever you pick. Like if you go Victor or something here, you get free scaling. If you go something like Swain, you get free scaling, although maybe you don't want that for Senna. But anyway, there's lots of options, right? And I really think Azir was probably the worst one. But draft out of the way, we get in the game. Gunkrab Yasuo. He's a big Yasuo guy, though he hasn't played it in a while, but he's still got it. He managed just to solo kill Praetor's Ezreal.
Yeah,
Praetor's going to be hearing about that for weeks. So I was very, very happy when I saw that. It was very funny. Now, at 11 minutes, there was this like really, really whack fight. I think that PGG, what they do have going for them is like this Yuumi Gwen scaling, but they try and take this fight at 11 minutes where it's like Gwen doesn't have TP and can't even get to the fight. And like Azir doesn't even have his first item yet. And the rest of them, they're just like not super strong. Like I think, it's like we're just not really strong at this and we're fighting like a super strong mid-game comp. And surprise, surprise, and they have TP at disadvantage. Surprise, surprise, they just get completely rolled. And from that point, it's still comebackable. They still have pretty good scaling with this Gwen Yuumi, but the Peace mid-game comp is really online. And so it's going to be hard to stop them. And to be honest, PGG didn't even make an attempt to stop them. Like, they looked very, very lost in this game. Like, I think PGG, they're extremely one-dimensional. Like, they just have to fight. They have to just, like, push and invade, and they just can't really do anything else. And I don't think they've really been drafting that well towards it. Like, I probably wouldn't play some of these champs like again, not really a fan of the Azir with like combined with Balkan's playstyle and stuff like that. So I think PGG, this game honestly made me lose a lot of like hope for PGG because I think PGG, they were such a good team last split, right? And they have like amazing individuals, but like I'm going to say something very brutal right now. I think the only difference between PGG and Gravitas is the individual skill of the players. I really think that PGG's team play is that bad. Like, okay, maybe I'm just being too harsh, but it was kind of the same thing with Peace, right? PGG is a team that I really want to see do well, and I don't get what they're doing. I really don't. And they just kept bleeding. They didn't really try and like slow the game down. And at 22 minutes or whatever, they just took another fight and got completely destroyed and the game was over. So I don't know what's happened to PGG. I don't know if it's like just the meta doesn't fit them or like, they're just like the drafts don't really fit their play styles or there's like internal issues or they've just lost confidence because you've seen like amazing players like Balkan and Pradith going from, remember there was like this game where Balkan's Jarvan had like 10 kills and Pradith had 15 kills.
Yeah.
Like when I think of those players, I'm thinking like pure 1v9 performances. Then it comes into this split and it's like YURI is the only one consistently playing well and the rest of them are just having turns, kind of spinning the wheel of if they're going to go 10 deaths or 20 deaths. It's like both of these outcomes are bad, but I don't know. We just get one of them anyway. So yeah, I hope that PGG will do what Peace have done and like kind of start to come back because there's still time. And PGG definitely played really well in the playoffs last split. So there's still time, but they've got to get their shit together.
Yeah, time is running out, right? Like we're in the second half of the split now, and I don't know. It seemed like they were like towards the end of split one in like the playoffs, they were heading in like a pretty good direction. And I don't know if like at this point, it kind of feels like something within them just like broke. I don't know. It's just so odd seeing them perform this poorly recently. It's like I don't know. It's like they've lost sight of their own identity. It's just really, really weird.
Yeah, you just have to say they're playing below their level.
To conclude week 6, let's take a quick gaze at the standings. Chiefs still popping off. They are the team that win a lot, sitting first place undefeated. Order taking that second place spot away from Direwolves following a 2-0 week against Direwolves and Kanga. Very well played. I love Order. I love Order a lot. And tied for third now. We've had a bit of a switcheroo with Order moving up. Direwolves tied for third place with Peace and PGG. Kanga looking not too far behind. 1 win behind. Still very possible for them to make it to playoffs. And then Mammoth and Gravitas sitting in 7th and 8th.
So I think while once again the standings, they haven't changed a ton, I think the results are pretty important and pretty interesting. So Order, I think they're now 1-1 with Direwolves, which definitely means a lot for going into the playoffs at the end of the split. Because the teams are so close, I think it's very likely there will be tiebreakers. I don't think it's going to be decided on points alone. So that's exciting. We love some tiebreakers. It's always a good time. And also I think Peace getting this win over PGG, I think it's just, for me, I'm really excited to see Peace coming back. I think Peace just personally, I have a lot of bias towards Peace. I really like the way they play. I like their players. And I hope they do really well. So I'm very, very glad to see them coming back.
Yeah, now they're going to go 0-2 next week.
Oh, yeah, they probably will. I'll probably curse them.
Not too much movement in the standings recently, but that does also mean a lot of tension. A lot of tension between the teams makes for a very, very volatile market. And for our winner this week, definitely introduced a lot of volatility. He's a new entrant, and it's a player, and his name is Hooper from Order, subbing in for Puma. Big shoes to fill, and he really did well. Like he showed a lot of, I guess, like confidence and stability in his first 2 games, picking up 2 big wins. And like honestly, it's very rare that you see a rookie perform that well in their first week.
Yeah, I think even their first split, like normally I think, well, I certainly sucked in my first split and I think most people do. But Hooper, he played really, really well. And, I think, Amel, you've known me for a while. And so you would know they don't call me Big Stock Shock for nothing. And I'm pretty sure Hooper, he watched one of my YouTube videos once, so of course I will claim all credit for his skill and everything like that. But no, I think he seems pretty good. I've never really seen him be that toxic in solo queues, so he just seems like an all-round nice guy. I'm happy to see him pop off.
He's going to the moon. Moving on to our unfortunate loser for this week. It's a team that we have not had very positive opinions of recently, and that is going to be PGG, unfortunately. I don't know, we've talked about it a lot already this episode, but it's just like, I don't know, they just look so lost. And I'm just wondering if things are going to change between now and the end of the split, because this really is crunch time and they need to figure out what they're doing as soon as possible. Otherwise, they might even find themselves dropping out of playoffs.
Yeah, I think that PGG, they have the tools needed to definitely climb their way back up. Like, I think it could literally just be like flipping a switch. 1 week, they will probably just like come back really strong. Like, they have the players, they have the infrastructure, like all their players, I guess, pretty much are experienced other than Winter, but like they've got a lot of experience on the roster. They've got a lot of individual skill. They've got like talented coaching staff and stuff. So they've got a lot of stuff going for them. I really think that at this point, their biggest enemy is themselves, and they really need to work that out, man.
Yeah, definitely a team that's been through its fair share of ups and downs. And speaking of ups and downs, our question mark for this week is going to be Peace. They've also had a lot of ups and downs, and we still don't really know, like, on a given week if they're going to be up or down. Like, they had a pretty solid week. Oh, I don't even know. They had a weird week because they got absolutely annihilated, shit-stomped by Chiefs, and then they picked up a pretty dominant win against PGG. So it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, I definitely think Peace did well in their win against PGG, but I guess the question is, was that a good PGG or was that a weaker PGG? Because they definitely did look not too great, and I feel like next week's matchups will sort of reveal more about where Peace is at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We don't really know how strong PGG are at the moment. I'm willing to give Peace a pass on getting destroyed by Chiefs because everyone gets destroyed by Chiefs, right?
That's true.
So yeah, I feel like I'm not that biased in saying that I think Peace are on the up, but at the same time, they have been doing a lot of inting the rest of the week. So yeah, I'm not ready to just like invest fully in them, but I'm getting ready to huff some copium. That's all I'm
we'll keep an eye on it. Now it's time for some LCO moments. I'll start off by saying MacMate was looking very dapper on day one's broadcast.
He did. He looked like he came straight off the farm. They don't call him Old MacDonald for nothing.
And the player cams this week also continued to be delivered by Menulog. We had Miku's wholesome tribute to Ryufuri, his fallen comrade.
Did you see Corporal's pre-game interview?
I see that you have a little bit of hair now, so not an Eggman anymore. I don't know if we should keep calling him that.
I don't know if you should keep calling me that either.
Okay, I'll stop.
Oh man, I think at this point I'd be too scared to call him anything. I got chills watching that.
What inspires you to come up with these creative acts for these post-game celebrations?
Watching people like ML kinda like inspire me to do something like clowny, funny.
The man shouted you out as a creative inspiration. I think that's high praise coming from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of my master plan to infiltrate the LCO, right? I started off small with the Twitch chat, got my tweet on the broadcast as well, and with the Winter thing, and also mind controlling Kitty.
What is Swain's Raven's name?
The Raven's name is Emelg.
Oh, it actually,
True.
we have the answer.
Seems like we had a bit of a Matchfix double feature with Big Shock getting a little bit of love on the broadcast too.
Oh, it's about time.
It's like when I do all the uwu practicing behind stage, don't I?
Yeah, it's awesome.
right?
I enjoy every second of that.
I heard that Shock, he's going to be coming to DreamHack and he's going to be looking
He's
for
not
you.
happy
If
about
you
it, is
do
he?
one more.
He doesn't like it. Slide into the DM Shock. Let's see what happens.
Hey.
Coming up next week, some pretty interesting matches. On day one, first game of the day, Direwolves versus PGG. I think this will be pretty interesting because I think on a good day, PGG just annihilate Direwolves, and that's the end of that, and we don't even have this as a discussion. But the fact that it is a discussion is more because, well, Direwolves have been looking pretty good, and PGG, well, they're struggling with themselves at the moment. So who do you have for this game?
It's hard to say, really. Like, PGG still does feel like a coin flip. I am going to go with Direwolves because I think they showed really good like fundamentals in their game against Order, and I don't know, they made a couple of big mistakes obviously, but I think those are like pretty easily identifiable, and like other than those I didn't really see any big sort of areas of concern.
Okay. So I'm going to throw a little curveball here. While I think that Direwolves are probably the better team at the moment, I actually think PGG is going to win. So the reasoning I think is that I think PGG's play style is actually quite good against Direwolves. So PGG also like to skirmish a lot. And I think that the places where Direwolves needs to win, being their like mid and their bot, PGG is very strong in these areas too. I think YURI is probably the best mid in the league. And when Praedyth and Rogue play well, like they play pretty good, right? So I think that Direwolves at the moment, they definitely look more informed than PGG. But PGG stylistically, I think they're a good counter to Direwolves. So I think they're going to take it.
It begins with Direwolves and it ends with Direwolves. Day 2, game 4, we've got Direwolves versus Peace as another match we're looking forward to. What's your prediction? You can go first this time.
Ooh, this is a tough one because, I think I will still give it to Peace. I do feel like I'm just against Direwolves a bit at the moment. I think maybe I've replaced Order with Direwolves, but I think Direwolves are good. I just think the other teams are better. And I think Peace, I'm hoping Peace, are back in form now and just going to be looking a bit more like their usual selves. And I think this will be a really good test for them because, again, it's like Direwolves, they're in form. Peace taking out PGG that was slumping. Like, yeah, Peace are doing good, but, you know, it's beating a dead horse kind of, you know, they're not really going to fight back. But I think Direwolves, they're definitely going to fight back. So I'm interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I want to go Direwolves, but I do feel like it's around about that time that Peace sort of started to claw it back. And I think Violet coming back after his break will hopefully show an improvement in the team overall. And yeah, I think I definitely do. I feel like overall Peace probably has like the highest ceiling, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Violet, you know, like you said, he's done with his break and now he's going to break Dante's head.
Speaking of breaking heads, I think we're going to take a break from the rest of this episode and we'll catch you again next time for your weekly fix.